So welcome to our webinar today. I will still wait a couple of seconds for the participants to arrive. Please bear with us. So welcome everybody to our webinar today on managing innovation in SMEs. My name is Dorina Nati and I will be moderating today's session. Thank you everybody for participating. Thank you particularly to the speakers. Before we start with our discussion, I'd like to mention some housekeeping rules for today's event. So please, to all the participants, please put your questions in the Q&A box at the bottom of your Zoom window. We will address the questions after the main presentations of today. This session will be recorded and we will make the recordings of the session today and all relevant material to you available after the session. For more information on ISO standards, refer to the ISO website, iso.org, and for more information about this session and the online training, which we will be launching today, please refer to the UNIDO Knowledge Hub, hub.unido.org. And with that, I'd like to introduce to you the speakers of today. We will have Mr. Bernardo Calzadilla Sarmiento, Managing Director of the Directorate of Digitalization, Technology and Agribusiness at UNIDO. We will hear from Ms. Nesreen Al-Kamash, Program Manager at the Capacity Building Unit at ISO. And then we will have two presentations on the topic from Mr. Leopoldo Colombo, International Expert on Management Systems, Conformity Assessment and International Standards Development, and Secretary of the Argentinian National Committee on Innovation Management. And we will hear from Ms. Joanne Highland, Founder and President of the Innovation Group and Association Development Director on the ISPIM, International Society for Professional Innovation Management Board. We're very pleased that these speakers are here with us today. And without further ado, I would now like to give the floor to Mr. Bernardo Calzadilla Sarmiento. Bernardo, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everybody. Good day, in case you are joining from another region, or good evening. I'm very delighted to welcome you to this webinar on innovation management, organized by UNIDO together with ISO, the International Organization for Standardization. Innovation is key in many aspects. It can enhance economic competitiveness at the firm and national level, can mitigate the climate change, and drive industrial transformation. UNIDO has been and contributes to boosting innovation at multiple levels. We have seen the rising importance of science, technology, and innovation policies, and helping governments to adjust their policies to the needs of the fourth industrial revolution. UNIDO has also been working in promotion of innovation ecosystems through close collaboration with national governments and business support institutions through the establishment of science, technology, innovation centers, zones, and parks. At the core of our efforts, however, we want to see the SMEs, and this is the purpose of this webinar today, is to put an emphasis and the focus on SMEs, which are especially challenges in accessing many elements of the fourth industrial revolution, from financing to labor market skills to digitalization. Yet they comprise 90% of the business globally and over 50% of the employment. Therefore, assisting SMEs to successfully achieve digitalization is an essential component of an inclusive and sustainable industrialization as per Goal 9 of the 2030 Agenda. The COVID-19 pandemic has only accelerated the ongoing process of digitalization. The development of appropriate standards and quality infrastructure will be crucial for the economic recovery and future resilience. It will be also necessary in order to restore the global trust necessary for production and trade. Innovation is at the core of recovery, is at the core of building back better and building back greener. Innovation management standards like ISO 56002 entail great potential to help developing countries and economies in transition to drive the economic recovery and the digital transformation. ISO 56002 is an international standard that can help SMEs to conduct their innovation projects more efficiently and effectively by supporting their efforts to develop their innovation vision, transforming their vision into innovation strategies, and to establish the support and processes to achieve their goal. Innovation through standardization leads to a number of benefits: improved quality, opening of new markets, creation of trust among consumers, and enhanced sustainability and alignment with the circular economy. Today also, we are very pleased to announce that we are launching the online training on innovation management, which is part of our efforts to contribute to SME development for resilience, recovery, and industrial transformation. UNIDO, in cooperation with ISO, supports the dissemination of innovation tools to foster entrepreneurship and enhance productivity in developing countries. We will also soon and will launch the guide based really on the ISO 56002 standard, Guide for SMEs guidance document. So we are really committed to bring innovation to the SMEs. With that, I would like to declare the Innovation Management online training officially launched and invite you all to access it through our UNIDO Knowledge Hub. Thank you very much. Back to you, Dorina.
Thank you very much, Bernardo, for this introductory remarks, and thank you for launching the training today. As mentioned, the training is available as of now on the UNIDO Knowledge Hub, hub.unido.org. And I would like now to give the floor to our partner in this collaboration, Nesreen. Please, the floor is yours. Please unmute yourself.
I'm sorry. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. And I'm pleased today to be with you in this webinar to launch the ISO UNIDO e-learning course on managing innovation for small and medium-sized enterprise. And this is as a part of the ongoing and constructive partnership we have between our two organizations. ISO and UNIDO have a very long and fruitful history of collaboration since more than 20 years now, trying to promote sustainable industrial development, also enabling developing countries to take more active role in the development and adoption of international standards, as well as helping their enterprises and institutions to apply and to comply with international standards and conformity assessment guides. These joint efforts in areas of mutual concern are very important in order to be able to tackle the global challenges and foster trade, and will continue to be a very instrumental tool in the future as we pursue the implementation of the UN Sustainable Development Goal. It's quite obvious that the collaboration between ISO and UNIDO is a kind of a response to the increasingly important role that international standards play as a policy mechanism and a market tool for trade and sustainable development. And also it includes implementation of joint activities and projects in different domains such as development, adoption, and implementation of specific international standards, as well as capacity building activity and training, including e-learning courses, joint publication, and researches on different related matters such as good standardization practices, environmental and energy management, food safety, energy use and energy efficiency, social responsibility, and conformity assessment. I would like to take this opportunity to mention that the capacity building at ISO is one of the 6 priorities of the ISO Strategy 2030, and the Action Plan for Developing Countries is the strategic framework to give effect to this. In addition, training support is in place for all our members to further support and develop professional competencies throughout the ISO community. On the other hand, COVID-19 has definitely been a game changer for the delivery and implementation of learning and development solutions and activity and projects, more in a positive rather than a negative way. And the digital learning industry we have seen is growing very rapidly, and both ISO and UNIDO are highly keen to benefit from the advantages of digitalization in the area of learning and development, and help the members and stakeholders of both organizations to optimize the use of digital learning solutions for knowledge transfer and application. Therefore, ISO and UNIDO has agreed also to co-develop jointly some e-learning course in different subject area, and one of them is the innovation management, and more is going to come in the near future. Last but not least, I would like to underline the fact that the new joint e-learning course on innovation management, which is based on the ISO standard 56002, will help individuals working on innovation activity within an organization. This ISO standard is a new management system standard that focuses on innovation. It states that any organization can innovate more effectively and efficiently if all the necessary activity and interrelated or interacting elements are managed as a system. One of the great also advantages or benefit of this standard that can be applied to any kind or any size of business, starting from the small to bigger enterprises. Thank you very much, and back to you, Dorena.
Thank you very much, Nesrine, for your introductory remarks, and special thanks to ISO for this yet another successful collaboration on innovation management. Okay, well, before we start with the presentations and go into more depth into the topic, we have some questions for our audience. I am now launching the poll, and you should see 2 questions on your screen. So please answer. Question 1, what is the main objective of the ISO 56002-2019 Innovation Management System Guidance Standard? Is it to provide a step-by-step checklist to firms to self-assess the effectiveness of their innovation management system? To provide a guiding tool to design, implement, maintain, and continuously improve an innovation management system? Or to provide guidance on auditing innovation management systems and on the evaluation of competence of individuals involved in the process? We will certainly be telling you more about the standard in due course, but please feel free to give your guess at this point. We have another more conceptual question for you. Creativity versus innovation. Identify the correct correlation. Innovation happens only with creativity. Being creative always translates to being innovative. Creativity does not need to be always linked to innovation, and creativity is not a relevant concept for innovation. So please give us your guess. I see the votes are coming in, so I will give you about 30 seconds to please answer the questions, and then I will share the results with you before we get the answers in the presentation to follow. So please. I'll give you a little bit more time. Please answer the questions by clicking on the correct answer or on the answer that you would like to give. And then we will review shortly. I still see a lot of you are actually putting in the questions. I'll give you a couple of more seconds. So please put in your answers. There is no wrong or right at this point. We will be discussing the topics in the presentations to come. This is not a test, you cannot fail. So don't be afraid, please put your answers in now. I'll give you 10 more seconds. Okay, I don't think all of you have answered, but I will still end the poll now so that we can review the questions and move ahead. Now I see the answers coming in, so please be quick All right. I'm ending the poll and I'm sharing the results. So most of you think that the ISO 56002 is to provide a guiding tool to design, implement, maintain, and continuously improve an innovation management system. Leo will tell us later whether this is true. And when it comes to creativity and innovation, most of you think that creativity does not need to be always linked to innovation. And this is indeed correct. And we will also hear more about this in the two presentations to come. Thank you very much, everybody, for sharing your views. And I am now very pleased to give the floor to Mr. Leopoldo Colombo, international expert in management system, conformity assessment, and international standards development, and certainly an expert in innovation management systems. Leopoldo, the floor is yours. Please unmute yourself and you will also be able to share your screen.
Leopoldo, you are still muted.
Thank you, Bernardo.
We hear you well and we see the slides. Thank you, Leopoldo, please.
Okay, so thank you very much for inviting me to participate in this webinar. And I say hello to everybody, wherever you were in the world, from the early morning to the late night, maybe. And I would like to take a few minutes to introduce you why in ISO we came with a standard to address innovation management, and how that created the need for developing a training that is a training that Bernardo had just launched a few minutes ago. So the question is if it is possible to improve the way the SMEs innovate. And this is a question that is very actual, because if you interview with the business owners or CEO of most of the company, 84% of them are going to say that innovation is extremely important. However, there is a huge percentage of them who are not satisfied with the performance the organization has on innovation. Maybe this 94 is not real now, because this is a figure with few years already, but in the last years, a lot of new tools and methodologies has been launched to help organizations to manage innovation. But I'm sure there still is a high percentage of organizations are not happy with the results they are getting from the innovations activities they are carrying on. What are the reasons of this no satisfaction with the issues? One is the fragmented innovation efforts, that they just follow, loose ideas, let's do this, let's do that, without a formal strategy or a formal approach. Lack of commitment mainly from top management that do not understand exactly how innovation activities fits in the day-to-day operation, or how to manage innovation in parallel with the operation. A weak innovation culture, especially in those organizations who has a strong operational culture, is very difficult to build and grow an innovation culture. The absence of an innovation strategy and not a systemic approach to go over innovation. And this lack of systemic approach can be seen in this survey also, that shows that the CEO of the most important international corporations, there are over 1,000, almost 1,300 answers here, that they say that a formal process to generate and source idea is very important to have it. And look, it's 75% of them say it is very important, or in some way important, to have a formal process to manage idea generation. And another 78% are saying that it's very important also to have a formal process to progress the idea into implementation. So we have almost 75% of the CEOs saying that we need a formal approach to transform ideas in value. And so with this scenario in ISO, we ask ourselves, it is possible that this formal approach be provided by the standard? Because when you say standardization and innovation and think, can these two words marry? We say, no, it is impossible, because the first words that came to our mind when we say standardization is uniformity, bureaucracy, is a bored process, all people in a dark room. And when I say innovation, people say, oh, this is fun. You know, we're in a Google environment, creative, young people laugh, drinks, and wonderful idea coming out of there. And so, and those concepts both are wrong. So of course that we can provide a solution or a tool to create a formal process from the standardization world. We took the challenge on board, and in 2013, we had our first meeting in Paris, and we founded the TC279 Innovation Management to develop standards in the innovation management field. At that time, we were just 14 countries, 12 European countries, plus Canada and Argentina. Now we are glad to see that 59 countries, almost 40% of ISO members are active members in TC279, and also we have a very important liaison organizations helping us to develop these standards that provide that formal approach highly required by the industry. In TC279, we have organized ourselves in 4 working groups. Working group 1 is developing the standards addressing management system, innovation management system. We have already published 56002, that is a guidance standard. Yes, and you, as you answer the question, it's a standard to design, implement, maintain, and continuously improve an innovation management system. And we started a few months ago the development of the future ISO 56001, that is innovation management system, but requirements. It's going to be a standard for certification purposes, because 56002 is a guidance standard not able for certification purposes. We also have published ISO 56000 terminology. Was very tough to be developed, trying to agree and reach consensus on terminology related with innovation was a headache, I can tell you, but the working group 2 succeeded and did it, and the standard is published. And we also have working group 3 that address tools and methods. In 56002, we provide guidance of what has to be done. Not how has to be done, but what has to be done. And then working group 3 develops more in-depth standards to address that particular concept. For instance, in 56002, we say collaboration is very important in innovation. Okay, and the organization asks themselves how we should collaborate, how we manage the collaboration issue. Well, you go to ISO 56003, and then you have guidelines to manage collaboration effectively. And the same with intellectual property, that those standards are already published, and we are still developing strategic intelligence management, idea management, and tools and methods for innovation operation measurements. And then we have a working group 4 that develop a technical report on how to assess innovation management in an organization. So this is how in ISO we organize ourselves, and we are working together to develop the standard. One of the first issues we address is developing the innovation management principles. So if you're going to work in innovation management, what are the main principles that you have to be sure that you understand and you properly deploy in your organization? And they are value realization, leader focus on the future, strategic direction, culture, purposeful ideation, managing uncertainty, adaptability, and a systemic approach. So we consider that these 8 concepts has to be properly managed and deployed in organization to ensure the tools we are developing as a standard, those formal approach that you are asking, will be successfully implemented and deployed in the organization. In 56002, this is the visual, and we develop to put in the standard how we visually see an innovation management system, and in the center of that, figure, you have these 5, I don't know, balls or not, they are not ovals. I think it's in English the word, and that make up a non-linear interactive process that every organization must have to transform an opportunity in value, or an intent in an innovation. So that is in the center of our system, and we have used the management system structure of ISO. The Plan, Do, Check, Act is embedded into the ISO structure, into the ISO 56002 structure. And of course, to make the central process effectively work, you need supporting elements like resources, competencies, etc. And all this is driven by a strong leadership committed with innovation and focusing the future, developing a vision, a strategy, and a policy, and also with a strong culture, innovation culture, able to coexist with your operational culture. This is the figure how we see the system and how we think the different elements of an innovation management system are articulated to provide that systemic approach that we feel is necessary for you to manage innovation in a sustainable way. Key elements of the standard is focus in value realization, sorry for the mistake, innovation vision and strategy that is aligned with organizational strategy, develop an innovation culture able to coexist with operational culture you already have in your organization. Collaboration in-house and externally is critical for a successful innovation. Managing properly the intellectual property management, strategic intelligence, and be able to develop and manage an innovation portfolio. I think these are the main points of the standard that I would like to highlight, and that we believe are very critical, or have a critical role, these elements, in the innovation management system we have developed. So in ISO TC279, we are developing this family of standards. Those in blue are standards already published, and those in yellow are standards still being developed. And I believe with this family of standards, if you are able to use them properly, you have the possibility to increase your organizational capacities to manage innovation. So to answer the question that I asked at the beginning, can we from the standardization board provide the formal approach being asked or requested by the business people? And the answer is yes. Of course, we can, and we did. There are already several standards in the field that prove that that formal approach may come from the standardization board. And this was a bit the origin of this online training that we are developing, because when we think about the SMEs, although the standard is a standard that can be used for any kind of industry, disregarding the size or the type of industry that the organization is, we are particularly concerned for SMEs who often has more difficulties in managing these kind of things in the organizations. And the main difficulties they may have is a lack of resources. In SMEs, resources are always critical and scarce, and no easy access to knowledge, different from the central countries. In emerging countries, sometimes if you are not in the capital city, it's very difficult to get access to knowledge. And most of the SMEs has a strong operational culture that sometimes plays a negative role here. And they are very busy with the day-to-day, and it's impossible for them to think in the future or in the day after, because day-to-day is so critical sometimes that they don't have time to do anything else. Have a poor understanding of how innovation activities interact. Do not have any experience in collaboration with the ecosystem. Sometimes even it's difficult for them to understand the concept of ecosystem itself. And of course, difficulties to adopt a flexible organizational structure. And so with these points in mind, we started to work in this online training to manage innovation with a systemic approach using best practices. This online training was designed mainly for SMEs to help participants to learn how to deploy best practices to manage innovation in their organization with a holistic approach. And we present the different elements that make up an innovation management system and how they are articulated with a systemic approach. The output of this training is that a participant, after taking the training, will be able to use the standard as a guidance to design, implement, and maintain, and continuously improve an innovation management system in his organization. Acquiring the knowledge to improve the performance and effectiveness of any innovation project, and having understood the principles acting as the foundation of a sustainable innovation management system and the actions that can be taken to deploy the system throughout the organization. This is expected output participants will get after taking the online training. The audience, of course, is any employee in the SMEs, but also consultants working in the innovation management field, assessors and auditors from certification bodies, public officers, personnel from international cooperation organizations. Many times, international cooperation organizations are requested to fund different projects, and it's difficult for them to understand the purpose and the objective of the project if they don't understand what innovation management system is and the role they play in an organization. Also, standardization and regulatory bodies personnel and freelance professionals working in the field of innovation. So this is the target audience that can benefit from taking the course. And the course has been developed in 7 modules. I'm not going to read them. You have the different modules over there. And with the 7 modules, we are addressing all the elements present in an innovation management system developed in accordance with ISO 56002. And each of these modules has been designed with the following structures. There is the learning objectives, the technical content, exercise through all the module, a summary with the main takeaways after taking the module. Further reading suggested for you to increase your knowledge and understanding of the subject, and always a multiple choice and true-false learning test that you can check yourself if you have got the main ideas and principles behind each module. And I think that each module can take more or less 1 hour for a participant to go through. So this is the online training course. So I invite all of you to go over the course and also to promote and help us to make this online training available and for the different audience that you are. So thank you very much for your attention. Nati, I go back to you.
Thank you very much, Leopoldo. Thank you for introducing the topic, and thank you also for giving us an overview of the training. I would now like to proceed to our second presentation of today and give the floor to Ms. Joanne Highland, founder and president of the Innovation Group and Association Development Director on the International Society for Professional Innovation Management Board. Please, Joanne, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Dorina. Just working on getting this to show up here.
Yes, we do see your slides.
But you do not see the presentation view, right?
Presenters mode.
And somehow that screen is not showing up right now.
You have to
change it.
In the display settings, I think you can change your screen view.
Next part. Display settings. Yes.
Right here?
Yeah.
Yeah, normally it just automatically comes up. Just a second.
You press the arrow there.
Okay. Yeah, I was having trouble getting behind the icon, so we're all set now. Okay, good. So I'm very delighted to be here today, and I'm definitely going to be building on what Leo just shared with us. And one of the reasons I believe I was invited is that along with UNIDO, we are also a liaison from an ISPIM perspective. And in the ISPIM capacity, we've been working on building a global body of knowledge around the actual standard. And what I would like to share with you today is the real challenge that we've been seeing is that innovation is everywhere and nowhere. And this comes from my perspective of having actually designed an innovation management system back in the late 90s when I was a vice president at Nortel Networks, not even knowing that we had designed one, and then working with companies from the early 2000s through to today in actually implementing or designing and implementing innovation management systems. And what we find is that the word innovation and the perspectives, as Leo shared, is not commonly held, and there's a lot missing in the space to be able to get us onto the same page. So as a result of that, we find that innovation, can be everywhere and nowhere at the same time. And I think the question is how do we change this, and how do we move forward to make it relevant for all types of organizations? So a few questions to build upon the overriding innovation is everywhere and nowhere is what is the future state of innovation management that we are aiming for? And how can an innovation management system actually enable this? And then how can the innovation management principles guide us in doing so? So why now? We've, a number of us that have been in the field of innovation management for 20, 25 years have been always asking ourselves, when are we going to hit the tipping point? When are we going to get on the same trajectory as we've seen in the areas of project management and quality management? And when is innovation management really going to start to take off? And even in the field of research, with which ISPIM spends a lot of time working with the research community, we find that the research is well developed, but it lacks a systems view. It's very topic specific. It's not looking across a system in terms of how do you bring a set of interacting activities together and so forth. And while we do see that there's a role for an innovation management professional, it also lacks specifics It's a lot of people don't really know, what do I need to do now? And they also know what they need to know. And they also, from an organization point of view, don't know how to make the case for actually building innovation capabilities. And then furthermore, how to go about developing them. So what we're really aiming for is to get to a state where we're learning about the science of innovation and therefore making innovation something that is embedded in all of our business and management practices. And we've seen throughout the years that we've had these hypes that have happened about innovation. Innovation has become the buzzword in organizations. They start off on initiatives, and then they find out after a few years that they're not getting the kind of results that they intended. They shut down programs only to find out that they need them and resurrect them again. So we've gone through a lot of peaks and valleys throughout the journey to learn about what we really need to do from an innovation management point of view. And it's commonly held, my view and many others, is that we need to get to a place where we're not just thinking about innovation as a process. We're actually thinking about innovation management as a system. And that system is what is really going to drive the change into the future. So that system is really, as Leo presented earlier, the standard that has been developed around 56002. And I would like to just point out two very important elements here that we find the standard provides. One, the framework, the organizing framework, the way to be able to think about the organization by understanding its context, understanding what leadership really needs to do, understanding how to move from intent through to value by running through a process that is, as Leo said earlier, very iterative and requires that we embed learning as a part of it. And then also being able to support it through the various resources and so forth, and making sure that we also are able to measure its performance. Now, in the past, companies that embarked on this kind of a journey to actually put in innovation management initiatives, the average life of these kinds of programs was roughly about 4 years. And as I mentioned earlier, people would get going, they'd get started, and then they'd find out that they weren't achieving their intended results. And part of the challenge is that we were looking at it as a process, as I mentioned earlier, and also we weren't looking at it as a competence or as a function or as something that needs to be embedded in the organization. And it can change. It has to be dynamic as a system because all systems do change, but they need to be able to adapt to the circumstances. And it shouldn't be a situation where when you're in an area where external or internal factors may not be so favorable for the business at a given point in time, that you shut down an entire innovation department. Just as much as we would not get rid of all of our engineers or we would not get rid of all of our marketing people, why should we get rid of all of our innovation people when the economy or the business situation is not favorable? And therefore, we really need to be managing this as a system where we're thinking about what is the call to action and the initiation that is required. How do we evolve it over time to meet these changing circumstances? And then how do we build it to be sustainable so that it doesn't shut down after 4 years, or it doesn't end up being about one individual driving this, and when the individual is gone, there's no longer a systematic capability or a systemic way of being able to deal with this. So that is one of the areas, the framework. The other area is the language. Until we all can be on the same page from an innovation language point of view, the word innovation will mean different things to different people. And as a result, as Leo mentioned, getting to terminology on innovation is not easy because everybody has different definitions and even descriptions for what this means. But there, through obviously what has been done in 56,000 and also through having these principles in place, they actually help us to be able to have a common language, build that common vocabulary where we can understand each other. And now Leo went through the principles that are also included in 56,000. And what I would like to do is just focus in on one principle in particular that what I have learned seems to be equally relevant for the very large complex organizations that we typically work with, through to the SMEs, where you might either be starting your journey or you might be in the middle of your journey and you're trying to figure out where to go to next. And that happens to be the area of managing uncertainty. So in the world of risk, and typically that's much more driven by the development and operational excellence side of the equation. The end game is clear. It's based on what we know, and it's driven by requirements. So we're in a situation where we're able to put the requirements together. And therefore, on a technical level or an infrastructure, we're basing it on something that already exists. We can define the specifications that we might need to be able to develop a solution. From a market or a mission point of view, for those of you that are in a nonprofit area, the mission or the market is familiar, it exists, and we actually have data available to support some kind of case that we're going to make, either a business case or a case for a mission and so forth. And on the resource side, the resources are there. We have the people and money. Of course, we need to prioritize across the portfolio in order to be able to move these projects forward. But there's a mechanism for being able to do that. And then on the organization side, we have different requirements that say that we have sponsors, or we have a home, or we have a commitment that comes from a clear strategy and metrics and so forth. So we know that world, and most of the time it's handled from a more of a phase gated kind of approach or process, and it's pretty well known within the organization what are the rules of the game. On the other hand, when we get to the side where we're dealing with uncertainty, the end game is not clear. It's really based on what we don't know yet. It's also driven by questions. And so for many of you that are working in what we would think of as the front end innovation, you often don't have answers to the questions. You might have been able to identify some opportunities that you would like to explore, experiment with, and so forth, but you really don't know ultimately yet what that solution is going to be. And so on the technical level or the infrastructure level, we don't even know yet if it's feasible. And we're asking ourselves, what could we leverage or create to be able to move forward? And how could this change the world or performance or costs to help us to do so? And then on the market or the mission side, we don't know yet, how are we going to learn when we're dealing with these unfamiliar or non-existing markets or missions? So how do we go about doing that? And then how do we test for new applications and business models where we're not spending a lot of money doing so? We're actually on a trajectory where we're able to learn. And then on the resource side, do we even have the people with the right competencies to do this? And how can we get money when it's difficult to even make the case early on for why we should be doing this? And how do we fill our knowledge gaps internally and then obviously externally through partnerships? And then on the organization side, we're asking ourselves, well, how does this fit with our strategic ambitions? It may not fit with current strategy, and all likely it does not. And we might need some kind of strategic intent to be developed in order to guide us. And then the idea is like, how do we seek support when we have no credible business case? So how do we get the various stakeholders or interested parties engaged when we can't even tell them how much money we're going to make, or even for that matter, what the solution is going to be? So as a result of that, the uncertainty world is fraught with questions, and we need to be able to answer them. And that gets us to the issue of mindset. And in the mindset, a lot of people think they have the answers, but we know for a fact that they don't have the answers. And this Mark Twain quote, it ain't what you don't know that gets you into trouble. It's what you know for sure that just ain't so. So in the world of uncertainty and in the world dealing with innovation management, we have to be open to knowing that we do not have the answers yet and understanding what kinds of questions that we need to ask. And we need to make sure that the executives are aligned accordingly to be asking the right kinds of questions in the early days of an innovation opportunity, because if we're not asking the right questions, we're going to actually undermine the potential of what we can do in the innovation space. So I wanted to share with you a little bit about the world of uncertainty. And the reason I thought this would be also appropriate from an SME point of view is that we have found that startups and smaller organizations have been using this approach to also frame it for their own questions. So I, give this to you as something that might help you to start thinking about what do you know and what are the questions actually that you need to ask to help to move you more into the innovation management space. So thank you for your time, and over to you, Dorina.
Thank you very much, Joanne, for this very insightful presentation into the topic. Now, before we go to our questions, I have some questions for the audience. So I'm launching the second poll for today, 2 short questions for you. Which of these tasks is not part of the role of a leader in promoting innovation? Supporting research, coordinating different ideas and people, providing clear vision for transforming ideas to concepts, and supervising directly all the activities. Please put in your answers now. And we have a second question. Which of these steps is not part of the process for developing an innovation strategy? Comparing the firm with other firms in the sector, identifying immediate goals, mapping the context and resources, and conducting an analysis of innovations in the recent past. So please put in your answers now. I'll give you about 30 seconds to do so. Please give us your feedback, and then I will share the results with you. So I see the answers coming in. Which of the tasks is not part of the role of a leader in promoting innovation, and which of the steps is not part of the process for developing an innovation strategy? Please put in your questions quickly, and then we will review the answers shortly. I'll give you 10 more seconds. Please put in your answers. I see many of you have already done, so a couple more seconds. All right, I will be ending the poll and share the results. So which of the tasks is not part of a leader in promoting innovation? You say supervising directly all the activities, and this is the correct answer. Congratulations, you paid attention to the presentation and understood the concepts well. The second question, which of the steps is not part of the process of developing an innovation strategy? You're saying it's comparing the firm with other firms, and this is also correct. So we're very happy with the results and your feedback so far. And we have some questions for, I suggest to start with Leopoldo. So Leopoldo, what are the most relevant skills that one needs in innovation management, particularly for SMEs, and what can be done to promote these skills and to create the capacities that we'll be needing for successfully managing innovation?
Okay, and I will say that in small and medium enterprises, they don't have full-time resources dedicated to innovation. So having the necessary skill to switch from the operational hat to the creativity hat is critical for them to ensure that can be participated in both kinds of activities. Another topic that I would say a management skill is needed is in learning from failure. In many emerging countries, especially suppose in Latin American, fail is terrible. Never is being taken as a learning situation or a learning exercise. So developing those skills to know, that failure is one of the possible outputs in the innovation, and learn from there is also a critical one. And also I would say to learn how to work in an open collaboration environment. And I think that UNIDO can develop, training to address those topics, also organize open forums where, experiences can be interchanged. And also maybe, make some kind of pools between one organization who has experience in the issue and take people from SMEs to do on-the-floor practices on the subject. That could be, activities that UNIDO can organize throughout the world.
Thank you, Leopoldo. I have a question, a more theoretical question on the research related into the area of innovation and innovation management. So what are some of the research gaps in the literature to develop systemic systems that promote innovation and entrepreneurship, competitiveness, and the respective resilience challenges? Are there any gaps, and what would be a starting point to fill these research gaps or the gaps in the background information?
For Joanne or for me?
Whoever would like to answer. It's a question from the audience. It is not addressed to anyone in particular, but would you have an answer to this question?
Leo, you want me to take it? Okay. So I think it might have been directed at me because I did briefly talk about it in the presentation. And I think it goes back to the fact that most research is based on a very specific topic or theme that it needs to be grounded. It needs to be able to hit the A-level journals, and the A-level journals are not very good at thinking on a systems level because they're really looking for going into depth on a particular topic. And so I would say in research right now, where we're seeing the biggest gap, and it's starting to change because we're starting to put things into the Journal of Innovation Management and so forth, where we're, rather than going deep, we're going on a breadth level and looking across all the elements that make up innovation management. And as a result of that, the more research we can get into that area, the more we'll be able to professionalize innovation management as well, because we'll be able to not be just about a process or not be just about a particular tool or method, but it will be about how do you bring it all together to be able to create the organizations of the future that can adapt to change and change the world in a way and in that it'll be better, deal with the climate issues, so forth, that are really critical for us to even survive on this planet.
Thank you very much, Joanne, for answering this rather tough question, I would say. I have one more question, which I would still like to pose to you, Joanne. So to what extent does the ISO standard address gender equality or gender biases? And can it actually be a tool for bridging gender inequality in innovation?
Okay, well, you want to know what? The first question was not as tough as this one, but I actually, I knew it was coming, so I had to give it some thought, and I think I have two answers for that. One is going back to what I presented, just speaking as a woman, because being in a gender basis, I'll speak as a woman. We don't have these informal networks in the same way, and I'm not trying to criticize men, but we don't have the old boys network. We don't have those kind of networks that we can rely upon. And a lot of what gets done in informal networks. And in looking at the standard now, it's actually a way where we can formalize the relationships. We can create the language where we can all be able to communicate together and understand each other. And we have a framework in which to give us credibility, so that when we are moving forward, the standard can be a guide and it can help us to create a level playing field that we typically have not seen in the past. But I would have to say that in draft the standard, and I only came in the last couple of years. Leo was the leader, excellent leader from the very beginning. I don't think we were really thinking about gender biases at the time, but we were trying to make it open for all organizations and create all types of situations for diversity to be for it to be supported. And there was a lot of discussion around that. So I would think it would be even beyond the gender issues to really dealing with diversity and making sure that we reflect what is required. And I'm actually now working on one of the other standards under development, idea management, and we are spending a lot of time discussing responsible innovation, accessibility, inclusivity, and so forth, to really ensure that we're looking across the spectrum so that everyone is included.
Thank you very much, Joanne. Happy to hear that the standard addresses indeed much more than just management of innovation, but also goes beyond and tackles topics such as gender equality and diversity. Thank you very much. At this point, we are approaching the end of the session. I'd like to take the opportunity to thank everybody that was here today with us for the presentations. Thank you also to the participants. And I would still like to give the floor to Mr. Bernardo Calza-Diaz-Sarmiento for his closing remarks. So Bernardo, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. And I also at this stage have to thank Joanne and Leopoldo, not only for sharing today the webinar. They have been the driving force behind the standard itself, and also preparing the training. So thank you so much. It was great, and the journey is starting. We need now to disseminate and use the tool for really bringing it to the SMEs. And one question at the beginning, we had standardization and creativity, but the more classical question is standardization and innovation. How these twins go together, and how are they helping each other? But I think that today we have heard also that standardization can be really a driver of innovation, and when standardization is properly used and not used in a too narrow way, it is the foundation for innovation. And this is, I think, one of the key takeaways for us in UNIDO. Innovation and industry are part of SDG9, the keywords of SDG9. And this is what we wanted to convey today. It is about implementing the SDGs. It is certainly to narrow the digital divide and all what it takes. But I sincerely think that to bring back now, after the pandemics, into recovery, we will need a lot of innovation for greening, innovation for inclusiveness, and innovation for not leaving anyone behind. We all want to get back on track towards the 2030 agenda, towards trying to reach the SDGs. And this was a very good moment. We are in the middle of the summer, so thank you so much for the audience to join us at this stage. And also to mention, we need to bring this to the SMEs. And when we think of SMEs, we think of the private sector. We need also to reach out to the knowledge and the research community, and we need to build better partnerships. So thank you so much for this afternoon, for this session, and wish you a good summer. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much, Bernardo, for these closing remarks. I would only like to invite everybody to take the training on the UNIDO Knowledge Hub, hub.unido.org. Thank you again to everybody for being here with us today, and a virtual applause to everybody. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Bye-bye.